With the San Antonio Brahmas out of the UFL for the 2026 season, it has come clear that Orlando is likely to rejoin the UFL in 2026 or join the UFL, depending on how you want to put it, because the last time we saw Orlando was in the XFL in 2023. Now, of course, this is a follow-up from my video earlier where we were kind of just doing things live and saw that James Larsen reported that with San Antonio out, Orlando was likely the next team to come in. We've got more developing news on this. And this weekend, I have two videos that'll come out because I have some theories that are brewing in my head, despite the fact what James Larsen puts here about Orlando Guardians. I have some theories that may make a little more sense when it comes down to it that we'll be talking about this weekend. I'll give a little bit of a preview at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. Make sure while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, because at 1,000 subscribers, we are going to give season tickets away, 2 of them, to one of the 8 cities and locations the UFL will be playing in 2026 to a fan that is able to attend those games. So let's go ahead and dive right on into this Pro Football Newsroom exclusive article from James Larsen. The UFL announced some blockbuster league-wide news today. They are moving away from 3 markets, as we talked about: Memphis, Michigan, and San Antonio. We are told that San Antonio being a part of this latest development opens the door for Orlando to return to the UFL. He says, rewinding back to July, we reported that the UFL was planning on moving 4 teams. That report was a bit premature, as Mike Rapoli was then added to the UFL's ownership group and stated that the league would move 2 to 4 teams for the 2026 season. Since then, the Save the Stallions campaign kept the Stallions in Birmingham. It became evident today that the 3 markets are moving, though. Houston gets to stick around as the league negotiates with Shell Energy Stadium, which I just posted that video not too long ago, while maintaining their relationship at Space City Financial. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Brahmas are left on the outside looking in. The Alamo Dome and surrounding venues provided too many issues for the league. We reported back in July that Orlando was a market that the UFL intended to return to. Orlando has remained in close negotiations with the UFL throughout this entire process and is expected to be part of the UFL in 2026. With San Antonio now officially relocating alongside Memphis and Michigan, it opens the door for Orlando to join the UFL once again. And even though what's interesting is just a couple weeks ago, Mike Rapoli had shared a post from UFL fans on X talking about the Orlando Guardians and saying this one is very interesting. Co-owners Mike Rapoli, Danny Garcia are both based out of Orlando, and reportedly the UFL have 2 years left on the lease at Camping World Stadium. Could this be a possibility for 26 despite it being a larger stadium? Well, that's what he replied, and he just said, interesting thought. Would Orlando support a team? What other markets do you think make sense for the UFL? Again, that was a couple weeks back. But what is interesting about this, and I'll mention a little bit more on that here in a second, but as it goes on, the XFL played in Orlando in 2023 and had signed a multi-year lease at Camping World Stadium. One of the reasons why Orlando is still on UFL's radar, they have prepaid at least another year at Camping World. Camping World Stadium is a massive venue, though, and seats over 60,000 people. Another option, and I 100% agree with James on this, and I do think this is the route they're going, and I'll explain some context on that. So another option for the UFL would be Inter and Co Stadium. I mentioned this earlier in the video, another video today. It's the home of the Orlando City MLS and Orlando Pride NWSL, something the UFL would have to navigate, considering it has capacity of around 25,500, though. It fits the vision Mike Rapoli and Russ Brandon speak of moving forward into the 2026 and beyond. Now, before I go into the ticket side of Orlando, because that's mentioned in this article, I want to kind of rewind a second. So when I looked up, was kind of doing some research on my own with Camping World Stadium and Inter & Co Stadium. Both of these stadiums are owned by the city of Orlando. Now, based on how contracts work, if they had a lease, the XFL/UFL had a 1-year lease still out there that is prepaid, who is to say that they don't just transfer that to Inter & Co Stadium, which probably would be cheaper. Maybe that would then extend that 1-year lease with that payment out to 2, maybe 3 years, depending on how much it costs. But at that same point, the league could also invest more money into that prepayment and then lease it for a longer time. That would then initiate, again, with Mike Rapoli and Danny Garcia being from Orlando. Danny Garcia has a really strong connection with the city of Orlando. I've seen it in multiple videos that she has talked to city officials. Now, of course, some of those could have changed by now, obviously, since the 2023 XFL season. But again, Orlando's been in conversation and contact with the league ever since all this kind of started, so it makes perfect sense. But to think that they could just probably trade or move that prepayment over to Inter & Co Stadium would make 100% sense, where they're not at Camping World Stadium, which holds 60,000 people. That's outrageously crazy. It doesn't work for what they're looking for, especially going from the San Antonio to Orlando at that point. But here's where it gets very interesting, as almost a confirmation of this. Multiple sources tell us that on the back end of Ticketmaster, Archtix, I believe is how it's called, Orlando ticket sales for the UFL were recently activated and enabled. This is another sign that points in the direction of a potential agreement in place with Orlando for 2026. Again, in 2023, Orlando featured the XFL's Guardians, coached by Terrell Buckley. The team was a putrid 1-9, which didn't exactly bode well for the fan base. Orlando averaged just about 8,931 fans per game in 2023, only outperforming the Vegas Vipers. It remains unclear as to whether or not the UFL would maintain the same Guardians branding from the XFL. For cost-effective purposes, one would assume that they would, but we've got to also take into account that the Orlando Guardians gear and all that type of stuff were sold, and it is currently on the UFL.com under the vaulted section that they were selling off jerseys and all that type of stuff. Obviously, they're not going to reuse jerseys because the league has kind of changed at this point with the UFL and all that type of stuff. Same Under Armour or whatnot. But again, I kind of feel like that won't happen. But he says, of course, nothing is official until the UFL says it is. The league expects to make more announcements next week, so we'll have to wait and see. As it stands right now, the Orlando Guardians are trending towards a resurrection in the UFL. The league already announced Columbus to be a new market, and we have heard that Louisville is essentially locked in as well. And he says, what are your thoughts on UFL potentially moving back to Orlando? Now, here's where I'm going to leave you with a cliffhanger heading into this weekend, because I will be making a video. One thing that makes sense because of the fact with trademarks and all that type of stuff, we have talked about it on this channel before about the Spring League, the TSL, the Spring League that Fox had during the pandemic, and they had 8 teams that had identities essentially not connected to cities, but different names, different identities, and stuff like that. I have a big theory on, and of course I swear it is either my camera or the light that goes out. Anyways, I have a theory on this that we could be seeing them potentially resurrect 3 names from the TSL branding, the Spring League, and we'll talk about that tomorrow here on the channel because it kind of actually makes sense in this realm. But again, Orlando, Danny Garcia, the Guardians, unless she is waiting to bring back the Guardians' name in its respective home of New York/New Jersey. We'll wait and see. But make sure, again, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Let's get this channel up to 1,000. And then, of course, make sure you tune in tomorrow for more up-to-date news on the UFL, anything that breaks, and then, of course, my theory going forward about the UFL, Fox using properties that they already own and basically have license for, have trademarks for. I think it would work very, very well. We'll see you back here on the flip side. Have a great one, everyone.